welcome to Literary Souls, where we have Maxter and our special guest, Ark. Ark's here, guys!
I see how it is. Okay, bye, guys.
No, please don't! Just because you keep eating yourself out of the stream. Oh my gosh.
Hello, how's it going?
Oh my gosh, how's everyone doing in the chat? Hi, Ladart. Oh, I'm using the wrong mouse. This is not the mouse to the... Gosh, I'm already failing at life. Hi, Ladart. Hi,
well, guess
chat.
what? You would have lost. Ha ha.
All right, and it just looks like it's me, Ladart.
Arkasule. I woke up to you and Maxter chit-chatting, and I thought, oh no, I'm late, and I looked, and it's like 10:27, and I'm like, okay, no, I'm good.
Wait, so you literally slept at your desk for the 3 hours of sleep you got?
No, I had everything pulled up. I sent you a DM saying, don't bring me on. I've got everything pulled up, and I went to my room and went to sleep.
Okay, because I got the message, so that's why I didn't bring you on, but I was wondering if, like, you literally slept at your desk.
No, I'm not that much of a degenerate. Jeez. It's like working throughout the night. Like, I got 5 animated emotes created, and I created more than 2, like 3 or 4 regular emotes for Twitch. So now we have new emotes on Twitch. I'm happy.
Yay! What is up, Boba? Hello, guys. Long time no see. How's everyone today? I know, Boba. It's been like how long? Last week, and then like 3 weeks from there, because my freaking life freaking crazy, and I just want to blow everything up. But anyway, doing all right. How are you doing, Boba? How are you guys doing, Maxter and Ark? Why don't you guys chat while I drink more coffee?
I'm great.
No, you're a zombie. You barely slept. You're living off of what little energy you have left.
Fair enough. But be that as it may, I feel fine.
Hey, I mean, as long as you feel fine, that's what matters. Just don't keep doing this to yourself, because you will look like me when you're like much older, to where you have permanent bags under your eyes and people are concerned for your well-being every day of your life. I'm just like, you know what? It's fine. It's okay. But yeah, I kind of like, so you guys know my friend Ryan AF. I'm gonna go on a rabbit trail. We've literally been streaming for 4 minutes, and I'm about to go on a rabbit trail. So my friend Ryan AF, one of the things that we like to say, because he says he's always tired. He's like tired AF. And the thing, because he's a college student, I get that. The meme that pops into my head is where Bane is talking to Batman. He's like, "You've merely adopted the lack of sleep. I grew up in it. I was formed by it." I'm like, that's me when it comes to being tired. You've only just adopted being tired. I was born. Anyway.
Ironically, that makes me think of Jeff playing X or Boba, depending on how you know him. Because he'll be in chats and he'll just wake up at 4 in the afternoon from Central Time, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm so tired." But like, what were you doing? Are you not sleeping? Are you not doing anything?
I mean, there have been days where, like, y'all, part of the reason sometimes, and I'm about to tattle on myself. Oh, well. So, like, on days when I have, like, off of work, but I'm streaming, the reason why I start my streams so late in the day is because I get up, like, an hour before I have to stream. So, like, on Witcher Wednesdays, like, the reason why I stream at 2 o'clock in the afternoon is because I wake up at, like, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm just like, I must stream.
No, yeah. It's definitely one of those things, because I'll wake up on weekends even, and it's a normal time for me, but I just want that little extra sleep, and then I fall asleep for 5 minutes thinking it's going to be 5, and then it's an hour and a half later.
Right. That's how a lot of it goes too. I'll be like, I'll wake up because sometimes like my body naturally, and I don't know why my body hates me so much, but naturally I wake up at like 5 in the a.m., 5 or 6, and I'll be like, nah, we ain't doing this, and I go back to sleep for the next 3 hours.
No, it's much more 6:30 to 7 for me. But I also have a better consistency at going to sleep at a normal time, at least for me, versus some people who
Just
seem to
normal.
just go to. I'm talking 10:30, 11. That's normal for me.
Okay.
Whereas other people are like, yeah, let me go to sleep at 2, 4 hours of sleep later. They wake up, and you're like, how? How are you alive?
I wonder that about some people because yeah, like I joke, like I said with the meme of Bane, like I was formed by non-sleep, but there are people that are the like if you could like in the dictionary put the definition of lack of sleep, never sleeping, insomnia. Some of my friends like mugshots are in the dictionary. Oh, but anyway, instead of making fun of Ark's lack of sleep right now, let's actually get on topic.
I was waiting for the segue. just feel abused. That's all I feel.
You're welcome, Mark.
It's all in love. It's all in love. Besides, like Ark, you're gonna get a good picture of like me at Orlando for like a whole week of me going, oh, I need to sleep. Wait, I'm awake.
I just can't wait. You know it? Yeah.
It's gonna be amazing. And like Megan from Noob Review, she's like, I like coffee too, Mando. And I'm like, oh no. You're never going to sleep during this entire event until we crash from exhaustion. This is how we're going to play this game.
Lovely.
Orlando 2022 is going to be the new Russian sleep experiment.
Basically.
Nope. I'm sleeping. I will sleep on the floor if I have to.
You're just going to say, all right, I'm taking the next random bus that comes back to the hotel and I'm passing out. I do not care.
Exactly.
Oh, man. Boba, it's so weird. Sometimes naps of like 20 minutes make me more refreshed than if I oversleep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, sometimes your body just needs that little break. It just needs that little bit of recovery. Because this is something that I learned from playing sports growing up and even just talking to some people who are trainers. It's sometimes you just need that little bit of rest and your body will just refresh itself. After you're working out, it's definitely recommended that you just relax. You don't want to be doing anything else.
Late art, it's okay. I thank you for your worrying. I appreciate the concern. I really do. But nah, it's all good. All right, so fanfic versus adaptation versus what's canon. I was going to make the cool little thumbnail, but when I tried to get a little clip art image of a cannon and some paper, it all had like the little water print image, and I was just like, I don't want water print images on my thumbnails. They when other people do it, it kind of makes me cringe a little bit.
No, I completely get that. It just feels like either you went the really, really lazy route or you just don't care.
Yeah. But maybe next time I will continue to look, especially if we continue this conversation. Actually, speaking of my work, I will not actually be able to be here on Saturday next week, so we need to figure something out. Sorry, guys, laying this on you right now. I just thought of it because my work texted me and reminded me that they hate me. Anyway.
All right, Ark and I will take over the show for a week.
Hey, do it! Like I like if we continue this conversation, I want this to like if the
so it's gonna be the Mackster show next week because I'm not doing a show with that guy.
Okay, bye.
No, don't leave! Please don't leave! I can't talk about this stuff by myself. My brain can't, like, it sounds weird if I talk about it by myself because I'll start talking to myself, and then you guys will get a glimpse in a whole new side of Mando that nobody needs to see.
We broke Mando, Mackster, with one simple comment. We broke Mando. I love it.
Perfect.
Wow. So yeah, sorry about laying this on you guys like right now. I was reminded, and yeah. So
No, it's all
anyway,
good. It's all good. Duty calls.
it does, yes. So did you guys get any feedback? Because there wasn't a whole lot of comments on the video, but I had some friends privately message me saying, "These are my thoughts on the episode." Blah 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 blah. So anybody like message you guys and add more thoughts, add more arguments, add more content for the discussion?
Had a good conversation with a couple people about it. They pretty much said the same thing we said, like nothing to rehash. That apparently, Mackster, you and Mando, both of your opinions are widely held because like they agreed with both of you. I had a couple agree with me, but it's just like, why didn't they all just agree with me? That is the correct opinion to have.
They are your friends, but they disagree with you.
Yes.
They are good friends.
Are we allowed to do that? Are we allowed to disagree and still be friends?
Yes.
I'm going to leave you make that comment again.
I mean, but like for reals though, that's how it feels like whenever you have discussions about different things like, you know, continuity.
Canoninity. I don't even know.
I wrote it down in the post, or I don't know if you guys saw the post earlier today. I tried to like write it, and I was just like, it says it's a real word. I'm gonna go with it, but in the afterwards, I think I spelled that right or something. Right. In the post.
I get that.
Whatever that word is, that's yeah.
Yes.
Nudity? Oh my! Scandalous. Well, you know, talking about different IPs and what is canon versus what's not canon. And one of my friends brought up a really cool point. She was like, if you remember any of the rom-coms in the early 2000s, they were all based on Shakespeare. And I was like, no. And so I looked it up. Apparently, She's the Man was actually based off Shakespeare. I didn't know that. I liked She's the Man whenever I was younger. Do you guys know that movie? I'm sure you do.
It's been forever since I've watched it.
And like, so it was one of those things where I was just like, wait, how many? And it was She's the Man, 10 Things I Hate About You, Get Over It, Warm Bodies. Warm Bodies is a zombie movie. How is that based on Shakespeare?
Well, like, that's the thing. When it says based on,
it's taking the general premise and adapting it to something else. Because you'll see so many movies based on a true story, and it is so outlandish. And you're like, what is this even based on? You look, and it's just a couple of names here and there. It's
right.
Nothing else.
Mm-hmm. So would that be a fanfic then?
Yes. I would wholeheartly say it's a fan fiction because you're taking something and then truly transforming it into something else. And you're just using some of the characters to keep it the same or keep it related to the original topic. Because I think it's one of those things to where when you look at some of these and it's like, oh, hey, it's based off of a Shakespearean play, you get some of the ideas, but it's still different. I mean, look at Pride and Prejudice versus Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
Right, right. And so like, and also I didn't realize motocross, and then 10 Things I Hate About You. She pointed that out, and I was just like, she in her little kind of like long. So I have friends who send me video essays of our shows, and I'm like, should I be happy? Should I be scared that someone can literally send me a video essay on our topics? But anyway, so she in her video essay she mentioned that like a lot of rom-coms, and she considered a lot of them adaptations, but others fan fictions. And so, like, it was one of those things. In her opinion, it was based on the writing. Was the writing good? Was the writing not good? Also, like, she went more, like, a little bit more into depth. But like, that's the thing to consider. Like, a lot of people consider it a fan fiction if it's not written well.
It doesn't even. It's not even if it's written well or not. I go more. How close is it to the spirit of the original source material for those? Because I have not read these. I've only seen one of the movies because it was a free excuse to get out of class. But you look at Twilight's, that it had its own fan fiction, which became 50 Shades of Grey. And
I still can't believe that. Sometimes I think about, like, the F was wrong with people? You freaking what?
Yeah, but it's the fact that it was a fan fiction and they just changed it. So they changed it to make it something more individual and unique, but it's still, not something that I would ever watch. And the only thing that I've watched was Breaking Dawn Part 2. That's because it was a easy field trip to just get out of class.
I mean, yeah, and I hate to admit this, but I'm a girl with a vagina, and it came out when I was like in roughly high school-ish, whatever, I don't remember. And like, it was a romance novel, and all my girlfriends were like, "Hey, you need to read this with us." And I'm just like, as the people pleaser that I am, I'm like, sure, I like to read. What's it about? And they all knew I loved werewolves. Like, if you like, one thing know about me, I love werewolves, and like, I love that whole like legendarium of like any kind of werewolf lore and anything like that. And they're like, werewolves and vampires, and I was like, oh, really? There's a novel that's popular about werewolves? I stopped being friends with a lot of those people when they made. I was like, no, it's not okay. And I kept reading it. Because, it's only a fan fiction when it's written by a fan, in my opinion. Anyone can do an adaptation. Doesn't have to know a first thing about the original, like Amazon. Yes, we are going to be taking pot shots at Amazon the entire show, just to let you know.
I'm saying nothing on that. No comment at all whatsoever.
I mean, but that's the thing. Like, I feel like kind of part of the conclusion we came to last week is what makes it an adaptation is, does it have the authority of the person? Like, is it authoritative in a sense? Like, and if you have that opinion, like, is it authoritative? Like, if somebody gives their authority over to somebody else, like, that means that material is quote unquote canon, even if we disagree with it, even if it if it contradicts itself. That's the point that I was trying to, like, this week, various people is like, what happens when canon contradicts itself? What are we supposed to do about that?
No, and it's something that granted, this is going to be my quick little tangent on the MCU. You just have to find the MacGuffin to retcon everything. Because you look at the way the MCU is going right now, they have both time travel and multiverse. So
that just throws a monkey wrench in everything.
Which for me, the biggest problem with that is now what matters? Because at least when you look at a show like Rick and Morty, they make it to where, hey, there are consequences. You can't just go and destroy the multiverse by going into a different universe and expecting things to be perfect. Right. Now, if you make a mistake, you have to deal with those consequences, even if they follow you to a different multiverse.
And that's what I liked about Rick and Morty, is because at first it started feeling episodic, just like each episode was its own individual universe, unless you had one that definitely was like a continuation, like you would already know that it's a continuation from the previous episode or previous episodes. But there are some times where it feels like you can watch an episode of Rick and Morty and it's a completely contained story and it's not going to affect anything else. But then they introduced the multiverse and it's like, oh crap, all of those previous episodes actually did matter to an extent. So that's one of the unique things that I think is so appealing about Rick and Morty is when you make that connection.
Well, and one way that you can watch it that kind of makes it stand out is in the first season. I think it's the fourth or fifth episode. That's when you have the Clunenberg episode, and everything that episode and everything prior to that was all just set in one universe. And then after that, then they're jumping from universe to universe, kind of escaping everything. It's when you look at it in different ways, it just makes it a bit deeper. It makes it more interesting. You aren't looking at it from a perspective of, oh, hey, they're just going and doing goofy things, kind of like South Park. It's, oh, hey, their previous actions truly feel like they matter.
Mm-hmm. I actually never got into Rick and Morty, so like this is like new information to me because like I always like viewed Rick and Morty as kind of like a Courage the Cowardly Dog-esque show, like very much like, you know, episodic, like, and I just really was kind of tired of, you know, the Courage the Cowardly Dog type shows, and so I just never really got into Rick and Morty. So also, what's up, Emperor Doomsday and Jacob? What's up?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Howdy, y'all.
I get that. I get that. Sometimes when you find, when a TV series like Courage the Cowardly Dog finds a niche to fill, they run with it. But then you'll have others try to create like either spin-offs or they'll try to adapt that style of storytelling in their own way, and it's just like you overwhelm the market, and it's just not appetizing. It's not appealing in any way. It's like there's too much going on. There's too many options. I get that.
And that was my opinion when Rick and Morty came out. Is I was starting to like move into like college stuff, and like I was a very studious college student, so like for a while I put down all of the things that I loved, all of my passions, like, and I just focused on my studies. And so that's kind of when Rick and Morty was kind of becoming a big thing. And so I just never got into it, but now I'm thinking I need to go back and get into it. But granted, Cartoon Network really doesn't exist anymore. If you guys saw that announcement.
When I saw that, I went, yeah, this really doesn't feel too unexpected, because the way that they had been going since the mid-teens, and I really wasn't even watching at that point, it just felt like everything had to have specific messaging and all this. I'm like, what happened to just having fun shows? What happened to just something being entertaining just to be entertaining? When did we need a message and everything?
Right. Agreed. And yeah, so like for those of you who don't know, maybe we're not into Cartoon Network during its heyday. There was announcements, I think yesterday or the day before, that Warner Media has officially like
Canceled it.
Yeah, consumed and canceled it, which makes me very sad. It makes my childhood self cry. Like,
no, it does, because I remember growing up. I mean, heck, it was kind of the same thing with G4 TV for me. Because I remember growing up watching G.I. Joe in the morning before class, because that was the thing to do for me. And then later on, I would watch X-Play and all the other shows from time to time. I'd also watch Cartoon Network because, oh, hey, you had stuff like Codename Kids Next Door and plenty of others where it was just a fun, goofy TV show. There was nothing else. And now you look at it, oh, hey, we have to have characters with all this stuff. I'm like, I don't care if a character fits any sort of checklist. Are they good? Is this somebody that I can relate to in any way, shape, or form? And are they enjoyable? Because if none of those are checked off, they're a bad character.
Right. Yeah, Jacob. Yeah, no more Cartoon Network. It is a sad day in the nerd geek universe. But kind of like it's staying within the same vein of like, you know, Cartoon Network, but also staying on topic. One of my favorite shows on Cartoon Network at the time was Teen Titans.
Yes.
I consider that personally my canon as far as DC Universe, Teen Titans. It is Dick Grayson's Robin, Starfire, Cyborg, Beast Boy, and Raven. Like I consider that universe part of my canon. And so that kind of goes into like, I know Teen Titans Go kind of messed up and they realized they messed up and they made fun of themselves for a while. I don't consider that canon. No, and I know there are a lot of fans who don't, and like trying to go into like what is canon versus what's not canon, who considers what canon. And I think that comic books is a great discussion to have as far as canonity.
Well, and just look at, we'll just use Batman because you can go into all of the different story arcs. Is Batman Beyond considered canon?
I consider it canon.
Well, it happens well into the future. It very easily can come after a lot of these story arcs, but you go and look at something like The Long Halloween or Court of the Owls, which Court of the Owls is the one thing that I really want to see adapted for a movie, or it would be better as a show because that is supposed to be a long, drawn-out, grueling time for Batman. And just making it a movie, I feel like that really cuts it short.
And that goes into the argument, like, should there are some things I feel that should not be adapted into film unless it's going to be a long format story arc, like episodic thing. Like
if you're going to make it like a trilogy, if you're going to make Court of the Owl trilogy, by all means go and do that, because I think that is one of the least talked about stories for Batman. That is just so good because he's truly just trapped in a labyrinth and has to truly prove he is the world's greatest detective in that. There is nothing else he can do. And that's honest. The one thing that I would actually like to see, and this would be my one little fan fiction thing, have it be Batman Beyond, but he has to deal with the Court of the Owls. Have that be his big test.
So good. Like, but the thing is, like, what's his name?
I know. I said it and I blanked on it.
I can see his face.
I know.
I do not see his face. I am confused.
Batman. You've never seen Batman Beyond?
I have, but
what's the kid's name? I'm gonna look it up. Terry McGinnis. Yes. Terry McGinnis. That's his name.
How was I supposed to remember that? It's been like 20 years since I've watched that show.
I know, but we're still we're talking about what if he were to face the Court of Owls like Bruce Wayne. I don't think he would. I think he would maybe succeed, but he would do it way differently than Bruce Wayne because he's not I don't see him as the same kind of mind as Bruce Wayne. He's not a detective.
But I think the way that would that you could do that, this could be his big calling to become truly Batman, because now instead of having Bruce back in the Batcave helping him out, giving him directions, he has to figure this out on his own. He is essentially stranded on his own island with no help, and he has to find his way out. I think that would be really interesting. And that gives you a way for the Batman mantle to be passed down, not just physically, but metaphorically.
Right.
You have proven that you can be the next greatest detective. You deserve this mantle now. You are not just somebody who put on a costume and said, I'm Batman.
Well, and also here's where, the what is canon versus what's not, because within Batman Beyond universe, Justice League Unlimited universe, Terry McGinnis was technically Batman's son, but with the new canon, Damian Wayne has taken on that mantle.
I never thought Terry was Batman's son. I never thought of that.
Yeah, they in the last episode of Justice League Unlimited, because we all knew that Batman Beyond was kind of canceled around that same time. There was an episode where basically the lady that was in charge of whatever her thing, the government agency was, she took some of Batman's DNA and put it into another dude, and basically it wasn't Batman's clone, but they were biologically his kids. So Terry McGinnis and his younger brother are technically Batman's kids in that canon. And so, like, when you go into that, like, what?
That kind of makes me think of a horror game, so I'm not going to recommend either of you play it, but it's called Soma, to where your mind is transferred into
I am playing that. I am playing that. I got it. I'm going to download it. I'm going to stream it. It's going to be fun.
Are you going to stream it today?
I might stream it today. I might.
Do it.
It's October. Need some Spooktober in there.
I need to start.
I'm also going to be playing a new game called Scorn, and I know that it has almost no dialogue, but it's supposed to be pretty spoopy.
Okay, so if you're going to be playing Soma, then I won't spoil it because.
Yes, Laydart, manly war cries.
Only manly war cries. And also, I have an announcement before we get too off topic from the Cartoon Network being dead. Cartoon Network is not dead. I'm going to share my screen. Ooh. Let me see. Share. So it says Cartoon Network. This is their official Twitter account. Y'all, we're not dead. We're just turning 30. To our fans, we're not going anywhere. We have been and always will be your home for beloved, innovative cartoons. More to come soon. When the internet says you're dead, but you're sitting here like, eh.
See, I wasn't going the actual channels yet. It's their creative. It's their original.
Cartoon Network Studios. Where was that? Was it this one? Yes. It says Warner Brothers Television Group laid off 82 scripted, unscripted, and animation employees on Tuesday, which this was released on 10/12/2022. So that would have been the Tuesday before that, I believe, and will not fill 43 more vacant positions. The 125 positions represented 26% of the company's workforce across those units. That is what I got from cartoonbrew.com. So, and that's what I've been able to do in while you guys were talking about Batman.
Because I'm Batman.
So, continue. But Cartoon Network still lives, which I am happy about because they have over 30 years of content, and I would say,
oh my God, I'm as old as Cartoon Network. Oh God,
I know, right? I would go ahead and say they have about 23 to 25 years of great content, and now it's just lately.
It's been the last couple of years. Yeah. It's really bogged it down. No, but I wholeheartedly agree.
You have like a couple golden ages within them, like especially when they started out. Great content. They had a lot to pull from. I would say it happened in like 10-year cycles. Like you would find like that TV show that just hit. And I would even go so far as to say like Ed, Edd and Eddy was one of them. And then like, of course, Adventure Time was one of them. And turning 30, being dead, kind of the same.
I turn 30 next month, Laydart. I'm not dead yet. Gosh dang it. Just because I don't sleep well does not mean I'm going to die.
That's right. But yeah, so it's not dead. They're still going to be making content. They're still going to be making cartoons. We're still going to be able to watch the old cartoons. I recommend you go buy physical media for the older cartoons so you can always 100%. Have it.
Well, it's not just the, hey, they're removing episodes here and there, because we've seen that for a couple of different shows, some through like Disney, HBO, and all that. But it's also what happens when they just say, hey, we're no longer going to have this digitally available? Or what happens if your internet's out? That's
exactly
where having the actual physical media is much better. Because like I have a decent collection of movies. And if I don't have internet for some time, I'll just pop one in and watch it. Because, hey, it's a good movie that I enjoy.
Thank you, Emperor Doomsday. I'm going to mispronounce that. Shirai?
Kirahi, I believe.
Kirahi!
I believe that's the manly war cry.
Later, so to me.
So
going back to Kanai.
The last thing I wanted to say on Cartoon Network is you brought up a good point. with what do you consider canon and not canon when it comes to cartoons, and you brought up Teen Titans. Now, when I watched Teen Titans, I watched it because it was just an amazing Batman cartoon, basically. That's what I associated it with, not with Justice League, not with anything like that.
Mhm.
I'm one of those kids that when I was growing up, I didn't care about Superman. I thought he was way too strong. I thought that Superman was a Mary Sue.
I mean, in a sense, he is.
And
Because-
so I like Batman. I like Robin. I like Cyborg. I like Starfire. I like Raven. I like Beast Boy.
I like Green Arrow.
Green Arrow. Like I like those style of superheroes. So when Teen Titans came out, that was just like chef's
Right,
kiss.
and that was completely disconnected from the DC universe, like, because like they made hints at Batman, they made hints at other, heroes and the bigger, stage things, but they never got the Big Blue was never seen, Batman was never seen. They changed Deathstroke's name to Slade because so it was really kind of disconnected.
When I made that connection that Deathstroke and Slade were the same person, my mind was blown. I was like, but it doesn't line up. It doesn't make any sense. And that's where the canonity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think that's a word. Why are we saying that?
It's the continuity.
I'm gonna make it a word. I'm gonna pull a George W. Bush and I'm gonna make it a word. Yes, the canon of what is DC, never came into question. I always knew that in my opinion, I always felt that Teen Titans was not canon, because I always thought like the continuity was from the comics. I never even gave it any thought that you could have different types of media, whether that's visual media for the TV shows and movies, and then you could have the comic book written media continue the same story. Now that's pretty cool, but in my opinion, it should stay where it originated. Like Star Wars, in my opinion, Star Wars should have stayed movies. Now having books about it, that's cool. Having the now no longer canon Star Wars extended universe from the 90s, like that's a shame. Of course, we've all talked about that. Mando, you have certain feelings on that topic. But I always viewed those as extras. I always viewed that as fluff. And that was just extra content that you could like consume. And that
Mary Jane is Luke Skywalker's wife. You will not change my mind.
I mean, hey, I enjoyed those books. I enjoyed reading those books. I really enjoyed. And guess what? This is where Ryan Kindle and I kind of we've had a great conversation about this. After one of his Sunday streams, he would come in to where his like premium members were at. We were always in like a Discord afterwards, just chit chatting about Ryan's stream. So if you would like to do that, go ahead and become a supporter of Ryan Kindle on YouTube or Patreon or anything like that. I highly suggest it. He's a great guy, makes great content, and his community over there is really, really nice and welcoming.
He's not as bad as what people would lead you to believe.
Yes, absolutely.
He's not the boogeyman.
And so, because I'm definitely a Star Wars EU newbie when it comes to all of that. Ryan's not. And when I brought up like one of the only series I read for the EU was the Han Solo origin story one, they were like, oh, okay, we got to talk about this. I was just like, okay, tell me how it was wrong. Tell me how they ruined Han Solo's character. And there were multiple people in there that there were some that absolutely hated it. There were some that kind of liked it. And then there were people like me that I just liked the story. It was neat. So you'll come across people like me that think, oh, that's a neat story. And that's what I thought Teen Titans was like. I never considered it to be canon. It was just a really very entertaining show. And it had neat concepts when it came to the Teen Titans and the people that they fought in the broader DC universe. And I don't consider it to be a fan fiction either.
Oh, okay. What do you consider it to be then?
I just think it's a nice cartoon. That's
adaptation.
Yeah, but it's not connected to the main story, but
Mm-hmm.
it does pull from like the characters that are in canon. Each and every one of the characters that are in Teen Titans is in the comics.
Yeah,
So,
it does pull a lot from the comics.
so in a sense, you're saying it's like an isolated adaptation, to where
Yeah.
it still fits in with everything if you really want to, but it's supposed to just be on its own. And I think that's honestly the best way that you could go about with Teen Titans. I mean, heck, that's even what they did with the Batman games and plenty of other things. Because the more you try to have this be canon, either the more specific into the comics you have to be, or you have to truly create something else. When you look at the Arkham games, they are taking so many ideas from the comics and just bringing them in to make a really good game. Whereas for plenty of when they did the movie tie-in games in the early 2000s, which were not good, those were just like they had to try to fit so much in, and it just did not work because they were trying to do too much, especially for that time.
Okay, yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree, Maxter. Another one, since you brought up the Arkham games, this is a game that has basically the same style of combat. That is Middle Earth: Shadow of Mordor, and the sequel, Shadow of War. Now, in my opinion, those two are two very, very good games. When you speak of the lore, they're absolute garbage when it comes to the lore. It's just a fact. There's so many inconsistencies. They make so many leaps when it comes to the lore, especially because there are items that you can go around and pick up, and they have backstory. There are items that you can find that you have to turn them around, and you can use the spectral vision that you have, because you're basically a zombie with a wraith inhabiting your body. Basically, you can see the past, and so like this item is connected to a point in time, and there's an audio log that it could be two soldiers talking, it could be a soldier and his wife talking, it could be two orcs talking, so on and so forth. And so they would have to invent lore to fit this specific item, and they would of course pull from the lore that is in the Lord of the Rings, but they would make it fit these particular items, and it's wrong. But they did it in a tasteful way. They did it in a way that isn't glaring. They did it in a way like letting you know that if you have even a modicum of knowledge about the lore and you play this game, you can overlook the fan fiction that is these two video games. I play the game because it's one of the best adaptations of a hack and slash video game that we've gotten within the past 10 years. I really enjoy the combat system. I really enjoy the graphics. I really enjoy that you can just go around like you are set in the setting of Mordor, where it's just you as a zombie wraith running around killing orcs. What more can you ask for?
Right.
It's like the Arkham Knight games, you're just Batman running around beating the crap out of prisoners. Like, what more could you ask for?
I mean, you're putting them to sleep, right? Because none of those takedowns would actually kill somebody.
Absolutely
of course. Of course.
No, like, because Batman doesn't kill anybody, right? No.
Right.
But that's
well, that
when it comes to fan fiction, you have to be able to separate something. You can still appreciate something while knowing it's fan fiction, and you can also be able to have a conversation and educate people. That I'm sure that there's some people that view this. The Middle Earth: Shadow of Mordor is set in between The Hobbit and in between Lord of the Rings. In the game, you meet Gollum. I'm sure there are some people that actually think Gollum met this dude, Talion, and actually went on a little adventure with him. No, Gollum was too busy either ratting around trying to find the ring, or he was too busy getting tortured by Sauron himself. And that's the long and short of it. That's what Tolkien said was happening to Gollum at this time. So it's all about, if you enjoy a fan fiction, go find the source material, read the source material, and then if you don't like the source material and you think the fan fiction did it better, just say that, but admit that it's a fan fiction. Admit that. Admit that it's not an adaptation.
So here's the question that like kind of going back to earlier my friend's comment, like she considers something like when she thinks of fan fiction, she thinks of amateur writing, bad grammar. It's just something that a fan does, and it has a negative connotation to it.
A fanfiction can be written by a professional. It can be written by somebody who is well versed, but it could, because this kind of goes back to the Arsene Lupin versus Sherlock Holmes stories that I talked about last week. It is a fanfiction because it was written by Maurice LeBlanc, and it didn't have any sort of connection to the author of Sherlock Holmes. So it's purely a fan fiction. Even though it is well written and it is pretty well received by people, almost everybody understands, hey, this was a fan fiction, kind of a what if, and we're just going to kind of have fun with this. And it's something that I think, looking at that, because I've yet to read it, it is a really intriguing idea to where you see two masterminds. Because in a sense, it's like, hey, you're going through a Sherlock Holmes book, but through the eyes of Moriarty and not through the eyes of Sherlock. So you're getting those, ooh, hey, how can I stay ahead? How can I cover up my trail, do all this? And I think that's so much better than if you were to just go and be like, oh, yeah, no, I'm going to have Sherlock Holmes now go join forces, not with Batman, because that's already happened. That is a fan. But I'm going to have Sherlock Holmes join forces with an alternate universe Sherlock Holmes now. Like, had the Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock Holmes from the BBC series join with the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes from the movies. So they're both Sherlock, but Robert Downey Jr. is much more of a physical fighter who is a great detective, whereas the Benedict Cumberbatch is much more of a great detective and a pacifist.
And that's the thing. Like, which is canon? Are they both canon? Does it matter? Does it really not matter? I think that's like,
I mean, you could actually make the argument that both are canon because they take place so different they're well spread out timeline wise. It's not, oh, hey, one's happening and then the other's happening, because the Benedict Cumberbatch is modern time, whereas the Robert Downey Jr. is during the Industrial Revolution in England.
Well, here's also another thing to consider, and this is kind of, I'm pulling a lot from like Japanese media when I say this, is reincarnation. Like the spirit, like if we're using Sherlock, say like I know in some anime it's the spirit of Sherlock Holmes inhabiting like a new body, and then they take on the quote unquote man. I hate using the terminology, but the mantle of Sherlock Holmes. So yes, they're both canon, but
it's like the mantle of 007 because 007 James Bond is not a specific person. It is a title that gets passed down. So that way, hey, you don't actually know who this person actually is. They are just trained to go by this specific name. And I think that's kind of where you're getting at more with that. But I don't know, it's something to where you can look at all this and just nitpick how it is either canon, fanfic, or whatever, or just, oh, hey, it's two completely different adaptations that some people are going to try to mix together.
Ark, what are your thoughts?
I agree. I hate it. I'm agreeing with Mackster a lot lately, and I don't like it, but he makes great points.
Ark, let me say something that you will definitely disagree with.
Okay.
there should have never been Rings of Power.
Oh,
wait,
no,
you're gonna always agree with that.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that.
Late Art says, I don't think any of them are canon because the author is dead. My take is that only the author can make it canon. Oh!
We actually did discuss this a bit.
I love that so much. I'm going to steal that screenshot, stealing that quote. I love that so much. I don't think any of them are canon because the author is dead.
And here comes Boba, same thing as the Thor. Thor is a title. We're going there.
Well, see, actually, the thing that I brought up after the show last week was like different mythologies. Are those fan fictions to an extent? Because, the stories might be based off of some reality, but how exaggerated are they? And did people just continue to add on more and more so it sounded grander and grander? I mean, that's just another wrinkle in this whole debate.
But I think that mythology and religion in general cannot be you cannot create a fan fiction about that, because that's where faith and belief come into this, and that's a completely separate monster compared to, oh, this is my opinion on this thing that I know is fake, or this thing that I believe to be fake, yada yada yada. You know what I mean? That's where someone's faith in a religion comes into play, and somebody's opinion on something
about it.
Yeah.
Well, also let's take this into consideration. There have been a lot of movies, a lot of books written about the Greek pantheon, like the Lightning Thief, or different
Disney's Hercules,
or the old like 70s, 60s, 70s movies, Attack on Titan, or not Attack on Attack of the Titans, or like
we go.
There's stuff like that. Like those are kind of based loosely off of some mythology, but they're like, what do you do with that?
It's just a whole bag of worms. It's so hard to go and be like,
what do you do with that? What do you do with that, Mando? You're the one who asked the question.
I consider it fan fiction. I don't consider it I just consider it I consider any kind of, if it's not quote unquote from the closest source material, which granted, me saying this is actually a debatable point, but if it's not as close to the source material as it possibly can, I consider it fanfic. Like as far as the Greek pantheon, the Greek religion, because that's one of my favorite topics of study. The closest thing, or the closest, I guess, documented story of the Iliad and the Odyssey came almost 1,000 years, if not more, or people debate from like 500 to 1,000 years after Homer lived. Like, did he actually write this? We don't know. But
it was a spoken book, essentially. It was not actually written down, because they would write everything in stone, and it was a lot easier to just pass down from generation to generation via word rather than actually writing it. So that's where my whole argument comes into it, because as it was passed down from generation to generation,
how
was it changed? How did people adapt it to make it grander?
On top of that, using that point, Snorri Sturluson is the one that translated or created the Norse epics. He's the main, I don't know what you want to call him, poet, or what is it that for a Norse quote unquote scholar? What would you call him?
Just call him a Norse scholar. That's the easy way.
Yeah, because I am too tired to think right now. But did he exaggerate? Most likely he exaggerated. Did he twist things? Yes, most likely. Did he say it in a unbiased light? No way possible. And that is what you're going to find all throughout history, especially pertaining to these older stories, especially when it comes to religion, because 50 years ago, religion was one of the most important things to humanity, was what religion you came from. Now we're getting many more agnostic and atheistic people, and so religion doesn't really matter as much to these people in the mainstream. But 50 years ago, it was very important. Imagine what it was 100 years ago, 150, 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago, religion was king. Religion moved mountains. And so that's where you get into the you get into propaganda, you get into people that actually believed, actually had faith in their religion, which is separate from propaganda, kind of loosely. Because when I say propaganda, I mean used to gain power in some form. That's what I mean when I say propaganda.
Look at the churches during the Inquisition and the Crusades. So the church was abusing their power of religion to gain more power. It's
Absolutely.
That's exactly what you're talking about. It's where I think that's 100% wrong. For me, I think, and this is a very short tangent, when it comes to religion, it should be what you prefer. For me, it's smaller group to where everybody is welcoming and you never turn somebody down. That's how I view it. Other people will say you need to be in the big masses, whatever. It's just personal preference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where we come into back when you had all of the different Nordic countries, the Norse countries,
Scandinavian,
all of those fancy words that I can't say right now for some reason. I wish I could speak English on a literary podcast, but I can't.
Why would we want to speak English on a literary podcast?
I know, right? So those Norse people had their culture and had their mythologies, but then you move south 200 miles and like the Celtic culture or the Germanic culture or the Frankish culture had their own cultures, norms, and values, and that influenced their religions and their mythologies, and whether they considered somebody a pagan or a heathen or a follower, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And then not. And that's just with Northern Europe. You move on Southern Europe. You move into the Middle East, into Asia. You move down into Africa, and then you go across the pond. You go over to the many different Native American tribes at the time. They all had their own religions and deities that they worshipped or that they held in high regard. It's like if I was to make,
it's fascinating.
If I was to make a story that had every single culture represented, that would definitely be a fan fiction of the world.
Ooh, that would be
that's actually been done. That's actually been done by Shin Megami Tensei, to where the demons or personas that you use are from all the different cultures, and they are very specific as to which version you are using. Because each game will give you a little bit of lore as to who the demon is. It will say this is a good, bad, neutral, chaotic, evil, all of that. And
so if
awesome.
Would you consider that to? Oh yes, especially like American Gods.
I haven't seen American Gods, so I am.
It's good. I enjoyed it, but the book is also good.
There's a book I need to get.
Yes, it is. I believe there's a book I read. Unless I'm thinking of a different book called American Gods. Let me see. American Gods. No. It is. It's a fantasy novel by Neil Gaiman. I was correct. Haha. But then
there are games.
Yes. Okay. So the overarching franchise is Shin Megami Tensei, or Megami Tensei if you're in Japan. In that, you have Persona. You have Demon Summoner, you have Soul Hackers, a bunch of others, to where it uses this demon compendium, to where it is this giant list of all the demons mixed within it. It's not just, oh, hey, we're only reaching for a couple of Celtic. It will use Celtic, Egyptian, Chinese, Japanese, Norse, like anything and everything. It's a fantastic series, in my opinion, if you want something that kind of lets you learn a bit more of different cultures in a unique way. Also, howdy, Corey.
Ark, you commented as me.
Oh no!
What's up,
Sorry.
Cajun? It's okay. I was just thinking, like, how did I do that?
Whoops! I forgot. Oh, I just need to go to sleep. I need to go.
Right,
Oh
bye,
my gosh! But yeah, basically, for those of you coming in a little bit later, so yes, the main overarching topic we're talking about is fanfic versus canon. Late art. Let me read that again because you had the proper canonicity. Thank you, Late Art. And Mackster. You guys are amazing. But we're also now kind of diving a little bit into some mythology, a little bit into some, like, comics and video games. It's just, I like this big broad topic because you can dissect it into like everything. It's in everything. It's amazing. Sorry.
And this is also, there's an error to creating labels because sometimes you don't need to. Sometimes you misuse the label, and that leads to generalizations. That leads to us versus them think. That leads to witch hunts and book burnings and what is and is not acceptable. Stuff like that. Like there always could be a fan fiction that becomes more beloved than the source material. What happens then? Do you burn the source material, or do you just say this fan fiction is awesome?
No.
All right, I'll actually go a bit into that discussion because if you've ever played the game Ghost of Tsushima, it is actually based on the literal invasion of the island of Tsushima when Mongols invaded. Now it goes into different. It focuses on just one person essentially overcoming everything rather than the actual history of it. But it was so well received by the actual island of Tsushima that Sucker Punch, the people who made the game, were given honorary status there. That's obviously a fan fiction. It's clearly going and taking something and making it grander, but there are probably going to be people who never actually look into the actual Battle of Battle of Tsushima, and they'll never know what actually happened, and they'll just play the game and go, "Oh wow, that's so cool."
It might get them interested because, like, I know for me, there are video games that I played. Like right now, I'm playing through The Witcher, and now it's. I don't know where I put the book, but now I want to actually read the Witcher novelizations. Like, I want to read the books. And so, like, I know that's not everyone. Granted, I'm probably the minority when it comes to that. Like, when I play a game or when I see a movie and I haven't read the book and I know it's based off the book, it makes me want to go buy that book. I know that's not everyone.
No, this is a perfect segue because there's a vast majority of people that believe that the entire Witcher franchise is a plagiarism of another franchise called Elric. And Razor Fist did a great video essay on the topic, and he gave a lot of credence to his theory that it is a plagiarism. And there are many people that as soon as they watched it, they latched onto it, and they will use his arguments and they will use his video as evidence. Like, listen, he's not the first one to say that it's a plagiarism, but he's one that I believe is almost a 2-hour long episode, like a 2-hour long video. And so it's a video essay. It is well worth your time to just have on, and there will be parts that really make you scratch your head. There are parts that are extremely similar between Elric and Geralt of Rivia, eerily similar, especially considering that the writer for The Witcher translated Elric into Polish for the writer of Elric.
Oh,
so this brings it back. This brings plagiarism back into the question of like the difference between canon, fan fiction, and also plagiarism. And that's like I think I even used The Witcher and Elric last week as an example.
No, don't take Geralt from the Ark.
I am not. Like I say, enjoy what you enjoy. there are some that are so hardcore that if they notice a hint of plagiarism, they won't enjoy it.
They are out for blood. They're just
There-
like you.
There are Star Wars, like this is the original trilogy fans. There are Star Wars original trilogy fans that will not acknowledge and well, they'll acknowledge it, but they won't say that they're fans or say that they even enjoyed the Inheritance Cycle books written by Christopher Paolini, because the first book, Aragon, is very, very, very similar in plot and story wise and character creation wise of episode 4. Like, you have an evil empire ruled by a powerful magician. There is a they have unique swords that are specific for these type of warriors, the dragon riders. Then you have a rebellion that goes against the empire, and somehow this rebellion is still around and it's underground, kind of like the rebellion for Star Wars. Like, there's a good case to be made, but once again, I always come back to, if you enjoyed it, if you were able to sit down and enjoy it, that's good. I say this about Rings of Power. If you were able to sit down and enjoy Rings of Power, I want to live your life.
So, all right.
I mean, let me say hi to people in the chat. What's up, Gibbons? Hello, my dear fair lady Lulu. How are you doing today, my dear? And A2D2, the bestest mod ever. Hello, queens. Hello, dear. Hello, all of you in the chat. We are talking about canon versus non-canon versus now plagiarism versus so many other things. It's amazing.
I'm just throwing plagiarism in there as a wrench.
But you can, yeah, no, it works perfectly, because you're taking something and, in a sense, adapting it into your own story,
and you're making money off of it.
But you're making it something completely different. You're taking some of the ideas, which ideas are very open and broad, and it's something that nobody truly has an exclusive market on. Because you look at trademarks, I mean, it's ridiculous how Take-Two Interactive, who owns a bunch of other companies, they'll go and try to be like, oh, hey, you can't have the word bully in your game. We are trying to trademark that. That's such a common word. It's a common idea.
Oh, what was it that Disney was trying to trademark? They were trying to trademark some ridiculous trademark earlier.
But it's just like, you get those stupid trademarks, and it's like, oh my gosh. But no, the thing is, when it comes to, plagiarism, in that sense, you're still taking something and creating your own idea. It's, at least you are creating something completely new in general, not just, oh, hey, let me literally take every single character and just change the name. Let me change some of the wording. It's not that level of plagiarism.
Doomsday has a good or a comment, like, the longer the Aragorn series went on, the more questionable the writing became. And then Gibbons says activism trademarking saga was pretty silly. And yeah, like, and I guess it goes back to nothing new under the sun, no new ideas. We just kind of recycle the same old thing.
And for those that want to defend Star Wars tooth and nail to the death, what about it being a plain copy of the hero's journey and of old samurai sagas and old Greek sagas and old hero stories in general, as well as the burgeoning sci-fi and space opera stories like Dune? Like, what about those?
Did you ever watch Everything's a Remix? Or, because it sounds like you're making.
I still haven't done that yet.
I haven't gotten to that. I've been so busy lately.
But literally, your argument was exactly what they're talking about, to where it's taking so many ideas from so many other things. It's not truly original. It just feels original because of how everything is put together.
So here's a thought on that then. Should we completely get rid of the term plagiarism? Should we if I took an idea from, say, Star Wars or Lord of the Rings and I made my own thing and I made money off of it, I think that's where a lot of plagiarism comes from, is like.
But how about this? Thomas Edison was not the first person to come up with the idea for a light bulb. He was the first person to patent the idea and make money off of the idea for a light bulb.
No, and it's one of those things where you look at, even what we were kind of discussing earlier, the idea of Batman Beyond having to do Court of the Owls. That it's taking ideas from Batman, but is it truly plagiarism? Because we're taking a character and another set of villains and making it something different. Is that truly plagiarism, or is that us going and being creative with everything? Is that us going and expanding on previous ideas? And that's where all of this, again, just becomes a very gray area. And I do think in the idea of plagiarism and you're just taking one-for-one copy, making very minor changes, that should still be around. But when you're saying, hey, let me take some of the ideas from Star Wars and some of the ideas from Star Trek and some of the ideas from Starship Troopers and creating my own story based off of that, that's completely different, because there you're at least taking ideas and forming something unique, not, let me just take everything and claim it as my own.
And also, here's another thing. I don't know if you guys realize, Disney was in hot water when they created The Lion King, because it's based off of another kind of lioness, the white lion, or is it Koba the White Lion or something, like an Indian story?
I don't know, but it's also based off of Shakespeare. That's another Shakespearean-inspired story.
Yeah, Koba the White Lion. Yeah, there was a company in Japan, actually. Yeah, Japan. That was suing Disney for Lion King because there are some scenes that are almost one for one, and so like that comes into
that's to where it becomes really, really tricky when it comes to media, because you look at Ice Ice Baby, and there's another song to where the original creators were like, hey, no, they literally took this entire intro from us, but it's because Vanilla Ice changed one or two notes, they were able to completely claim they transpired it enough to where it is something different. Right. Even though you can listen to it and go, ooh, this is so similar. I mean, think about how many songs have 3 chords in them, and just 3 chords for guitar, and yet we don't go in and say, oh my gosh, these all sound the same, until somebody's just playing those 3 chords and jump from song to song to song. Because I saw that from a bit of a comedy act, and I thought, oh my gosh, that is so crazy. How everything just sounds so similar.
Yeah.
It's so crazy how this argument can go in circles, but it's still a fun thing. It's
sometimes you feel like a dog chasing his tail.
Yeah.
Sometimes you feel like you're actually making headway, and you're actually having, I always having a good conversation. We're having a great conversation, in my opinion.
Right. I love this.
Sometimes it just feels pointless. It feels useless. Sometimes it feels like you're actually making a point. Sometimes you feel like you're actually spending your time wisely having these conversations. But then on the flip side, it's like, oh, we come to like this perfect example of that shoots something in the foot, and you're just like, well, that takes that out of the water. So then you have to stop and think, and then you have to come up with another argument. You have to play devil's advocate. You have to play devil's advocate against yourself. You have to try and you have to try and be as unbiased as possible. And that is the key for most people. They can't be unbiased.
Right.
But so, in my opinion, I love The Witcher, and I love the Inheritance Cycle, even though I consider the Inheritance Cycle to have gone on a little bit longer than what it should have. That's a whole nother story, talking about the lore of Paolini's world. But in general, I love those two franchises, those two IPs. And when I find someone that acts almost as if they're like a detractor, that they despise those books because there's aspects or ideas or plots that were taken from other media, like for example, Aragon and Star Wars: The Original Trilogy, or The Witcher and Elric. Those two are, they pop into my head because we're on Literary Souls. Those are four franchises that are greatly beloved. I would say that Elric is definitely a cult classic, and that The Witcher is by far more popular than Elric. But I would say that in terms of having a tight knit fandom, Aragon has a more tight knit fandom than Star Wars does. Star Wars very recently has become a quite rabid, toxic fandom.
It's kind of all over the place. But that also goes back into like our topic of if some sort of fan fiction or something that's based off something else becomes more popular, are you supposed to burn the original canon? Are you supposed to disregard it? What are you supposed to do with that? Or do we just say, hey, give credit where credit's due? Hey, this person got this idea from this person, but this person did it better or did it in a way that appealed to more people. And I think that's kind of what happened with Elric and The Witcher. Like The Witcher, I believe, has just appealed to kind of a broader audience, in my opinion, than Elric, because of its just by its sheer popularity right now. Like a lot of people know of The Witcher, but very few people know of Elric, and so it's just.
And I think that and I'm going to go so far, and this is going to piss off a lot of Trekkies. I'm going to go so far as to say that Star Trek is also can also be in the same vein as Star Wars, being a fan fiction, meaning that they stole or they used aspects from other works of art, other mediums, other whether that's a written medium or if it's like an old movie or an old radio show. Like they very well could have taken aspects from all sorts of things, because you have to remember, Star Trek was a TV series. It would have been written by a bunch of different writers. It would have had the influence of many different
you've offended people in the chat.
Told ya. No, I stand by it.
We won't burn books, late art, I promise.
But then you also have Star Wars, which is, like we've said, it took the hero's journey. It took many different aspects from samurai lore, from like wizards. Like that's all that the Force users are. They're just wizards with a different hat on.
Yeah. It's just like D&D. Like they just did the magic system's different.
Yeah, the Force is just a magic system of its own. Like that's. So is it really sci-fi or is it more fantasy if it has a magic system? I thought magic was just supposed to be a fantasy aspect. Like there's so many different conversations that you can have regarding all of this. Gene Roddenberry's from grave. Good. Good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I can have controversial takes as well that I'm not going to back up in any shape or form.
Better controversial takes than Johnny 64.
Yeah.
Is this a guest of yours?
Yes, it is.
I will let you bring them on.
Welcome to the stream, Gibbons Plays.
Oh, hi. Hello.
What's up?
Hey, how are we doing?
Everything good? I assume you're joining to talk about what your recent chat, and that is the hypothetical we made up about the Chinese taking over the Hoover Dam and the rebels needing to blow it up, like that old World War II movie, Dam Busters. Yes.
So that was a bit of a messy one. So the conversation that we were having, right, was that basically it was something similar to it was talking about specifically copyright infringement and stuff like that. And we were talking about how the original Star Wars basically ripped its final act directly from this old World War II movie called Dam Busters, where it was, it was the British needed to, blow up this dam that was held by the Nazis and stuff like that, and they had the bombers. They had to do, it was a la trench run style thing where they had to go directly through this valley, dodge a bunch of AA turrets and stuff like that, and they only needed to put one bomb on the dam and it would blow it up, basically. And that was pretty much the plot of the movie. But Star Wars ripped that entire final scene, the original one, with the trench run on the Death Star. And so pretty much. I mean, in general, when you hear George Lucas talking about the different things when it comes to his dogfighting and choreographing, and not choreographing, but scripting his dogfighting, it's all ripped off of World War II dogfight, communications and stuff like that. It's
and they World War II in that era, Hollywood was pumping out Allied propaganda. They had movies that showed dogfights. They had movies that showed sea battles in favor of the Allies, of course.
And they had big movie stars in those. John Wayne was in a ton of World War II stuff.
I believe even
Elvis.
Ronald Reagan was in. He portrayed an aviator, I believe. So you had, and he was also somewhat of a big star back then too, because later on he becomes president of SAG, I believe, and the Screen Actors Guild. And so you had big names, and then you had rising stars as well that were a part of this. Who would have been consuming this? A young George Lucas later on in life. And so that would have influenced him. Who else would have been consuming all of this content? Reading about samurais, reading about the Dam Busters, watching the Dam Busters, and then reading and watching all of these other pieces of media. It would have been all of his writers, producers, even the actors. They could have given their input as well. So yes, Star Wars is the brainchild of George Lucas, but it is definitely pulled from other sources. In my opinion, and you touched on this, Mando, with The Witcher, I think that Star Wars just did it right. I think Star Wars pieced it all together and made it very, very appealing.
Yeah, I think that. Or Gibbons, you can go ahead before
No. You were gonna say something.
Okay, I'm just saying, I think that's part of our idea of what makes something canon versus, like I said earlier, fan fiction tends to have a negative connotation, but in our minds, what makes the difference between that is it good writing? Is it widespread appeal? Does it appeal to a larger audience? I think if it's written well and if it's done well, people will just in their minds just kind of automatically assume it's or make it canon or view it in that light as being canon. I think that plays such a huge factor in us as the audience or us as the reader, whatever media you consume content. If it's done well, it doesn't matter if it came from another idea or not.
That's right.
Is it done well at this moment, at this time?
Now here's some examples, and I believe we talked about this already, but they're just so good. They're great examples of bad fan fiction or bad productions. That would be number one, the Dragon Ball Z movie. That was done horribly. Now imagine you know nothing about Dragon Ball, and that's the first thing that you watch. Are you going to go back and watch the 1980 Dragon Ball anime? Are you going to go? Are you going to go watch the Dragon Ball Z, the follow up? Are you even going to watch Dragon Ball GT?
No, nobody wants to watch that.
Well, I mean, there are some people that watched it, and some people that liked it, and so. And especially with how Dragon Ball Super's gone, there are some people that are like, oh well, let's just go back to GT. Let's go back when we all collectively hated GT instead of Super. So, but there are some people that love Super. And then there's
for those of you who don't know, this is we've dived into the anime side of things. So
yeah,
it's okay.
Well, just a quick dip. It's just Dragon Ball. It's there are some people that are only Dragon Ball Z fans. They haven't watched Dragon Ball. They didn't watch Well, they might have tried to watch Dragon Ball GT. They didn't like it. They might have tried to watch Dragon Ball Super. They didn't like it. Then there are people that have watched all of them, like me. I have seen Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, and Dragon Ball Super. And there was even another one that was like a spin-off series.
Dragon Ball Kai.
No.
Yeah.
No, GBZ Kai was just Dragon Ball Z, but it was shortened. There was no filler.
Oh, okay.
There was like Dragon Ball Warriors or something, like Goku and Vegeta get transported to like this like separate realm or something like that. And it's an official, like it was officially made, like as far as I can tell.
Isn't there also Dragon Ball G, or is that the same thing as Dragon Ball GT?
I think that's the same as Dragon Ball GT.
I think, and depending on which country Dragon Ball Z was translated, sometimes the Z isn't a Z. I think in certain ways, like it's translated. So it might have been GT, it might have been Z, just translated weird or something. I don't know.
Right.
The Japanese do weird things.
This is true, but it all comes back to if you're going to introduce somebody to this. Another perfect example. Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. It has Lord of the Rings in the title. Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power is its official title.
It's not Lord of the Rings.
If you were
Rings
to,
of Prime.
I understand this, but if you were to introduce somebody to Lord of the Rings this way, and they were introduced to Galadriel, Elrond, Gil-galad, if they were introduced to Isildur and Elendil this way, and Tarmiriel and Ar-Pharazôn this way, and they never got to see or even hear about Anarion, which is Isildur's rightful brother. He didn't have a sister, so on and so forth. If they were, and what if that normie, what if that newbie, what if they liked Rings of Power, which, as I've stated, good for you if you enjoyed it. I would love to live in your world.
Right? Like
I don't like it, did not like it. I am having a very, very difficult time editing.
I want to smoke whatever they're smoking, man.
My videos about Rings of Power. So, like, if that normie liked Rings of Power, never read the source material, goes back and reads the source material, they're going to have a different view on Galadriel because they would have already gotten used to the way Galadriel is in Rings of Power. So when you create I'm just going to use the term because we've been using it, a fan fiction, which is or an adaptation, you have to stay as close to the source material as possible, in my opinion, to avoid this. To avoid having an Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is an amazing cartoon, turn into a live-action movie directed by M. Night Shyamalan that is absolutely horrendous.
And it's even like just regular other adaptations, even going based off of books or anything like that. Because if you've ever played the Metro games, those are honestly based off some pretty depressing books. And it does a great job of telling that through visuals. And obviously it's more action-packed and less of a deep thought for the characters, but it's still a really, really good adaptation that when you go and play, you see all of the time and effort they took to make sure that it was as true to the source material as it could be. It wasn't just, oh, hey, we're just throwing this in because we can.
Right. Or if you want to look at it this way, like talking about like adapting from source material, like all of the older Disney movies, like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Cinderella.
Are those fan fictions?
I mean, if you really want to go to the original source material, you're not going to ever sleep again, because Brothers Grimm is the original author of a lot of these quote unquote fairy tales.
I would say that yes, they are the original author of their books, but they compiled it, and even then, they probably had a bias of their own to make their product interesting to sell or interesting to even just read. They wanted to have an interesting legacy because as humans, we always have a bias towards ourselves, and whenever we make a product, we always want to make a product that either A, sells, or B, gives you a legacy. Edgar Allan Poe is a great example. He has a great legacy, and yet he was a sad, miserable person.
Yep.
Oh my god! Like I remember
who
having
lived a very unfortunate life.
Like,
No, his life was beyond messed up and tragic.
Part of the reason I don't sleep at night is because I used to read a lot of Edgar Allan Poe in high school when I was going through my emo phase.
I read that in junior high. We actually had to read that in junior high for me.
Same junior high for me.
But it's so well written. It's so good. It's something that honestly, if it's horror to an extent, but it's not. Oh, we are just going to be grotesque. It's a suspenseful horror. Which,
yes,
in my opinion, is the better type of horror.
Yes,
because the more jump scares and gore and all that, the less interested I'm in. I'd rather play something to where
it's got psychological horror.
Yeah. Speaking of horror aspects, as well as another person that lived a very sad life, that is I just had his name. Who's the guy that made Cthulhu, Call of Cthulhu?
Oh, H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah, H.P. Lovecraft. He pulled a lot of his stuff from other cultures and from his own ideas and melded them together.
Well, and if you don't even have to play, you just have to look at some like creature designs in Bloodborne. It's heavily inspired by H.P. Lovecraft.
There's a reason why it's called Lovecraftian like horror.
Yeah. And that's what The Fly is based off of, and plenty of others. I mean, that's very much where Cronenberg got a lot of his ideas from. And you look at Lovecraft, it's more people going and doing things to with old gods that end up going south. And you're just like, oh, this is really interesting. Because H.P. Lovecraft might be one of the better writers of all time, just because he was able to make it to where almost anything could be a tool to help carry a story, not just, oh, hey, here's something that I just threw out there because why not?
Mm-hmm. So I guess, like, in y'all's opinion, do you think that content matters? Like, how much do you think content matters? And as far as, like, if we regard something as a fiction or a fan fiction, an adaptation, like from a book to like a film or so on, or just any kind of, like, I've seen some where it was a video game or a movie first and then it became books, like the Star Wars. Like Star Wars is kind of that way, where they were a film and then somebody wrote a book based on that and kind of the behind the scenes stuff. How much do you think the content matters as far as us as the audience view on if something is canon or not? Who wants to start first?
I'll go, because I think it's more quality of the content, not how much content. Because it goes to the idea of, hey, here's a 200-hour game or whatever, and it just feels like you're being dragged on. It feels like you're just doing the same thing over and over. That doesn't feel like quality versus a 15-hour game to where everything does matter. Hey, here's subtle context clues as to what's coming ahead, but we aren't making it so obvious for you. I think it's stuff like that. That's to where quality over quantity is the big key. And if you want something to be viewed more as canon, you don't need to write more of it. You need to write a higher quality for it.
Ooh. Ladar brings up a great point. Who has the goofier avatar? Let's see, which is the canon? No, I'm just kidding. Gibbons, you've been quiet. Do you want to comment?
So when it comes like to content on whether or not something is canon or non-canon, so like what are we talking about in particular? Is it like the use of the content? Like, is it appropriate in terms of like what the original spirit of it is and all that stuff? Or?
Like we have a perfect example of what is a successful mainstream fan fiction in 50 Shades of Grey being a fan fiction of Twilight. Okay. Similar to that context, and also like our previous examples of could they be considered fan fiction? Star Wars, the plagiarism aspects of everything, being The Witcher and Aragon and things like that, everything that we've been talking about last week and this week. So is it you said the correct context? Is that what you said?
Well, like, because like when it comes to like borrowing all the different aspects of, like, for example, like the setting or the characters and all that stuff, right? Like you can borrow all of these different things, but like, is it being used, I guess, in the same context? Like, are the characters behaving the same way? Are they like really, are they are like, for example, right, one could let's say there's a hypothetical where there's a sequel to the original trilogy where Luke goes off to an island and doesn't care about the Force anymore, and he let's say hypothetically, let's say that movie exists.
It might.
Does his character actually match how he behaved in the originals and stuff like that? And of course, there's the arguments and all that stuff. By the way, hi Fury. There's these arguments where you make, there's certain events that can be set into motion that you could get Luke from where he was at the end of Return of the Jedi all the way to where he was in this hypothetical movie that doesn't exist. And that'd be great. Yes, I would love to see that. I would love to be able to see the events that lead to that, because I imagine it was incredibly tragic. I imagine it wasn't easy for him to go through, but it's like, if you can't actually map out the route correctly, then why am I going to even consider that as a possibility? Right?
Now that brings up, like, that's a great argument.
Like that, and I'm going to borrow this argument, from Mahler and the others, right? There is a possible timeline where Luke Skywalker could be this dejected, homeless bastard who spearfishes on an island and doesn't use the Force or anything like that. I am willing to concede that, if you can draw me the path from point A to point B as to how that works.
And it's a plausible path. It's not just oh, by the way, this happened and now he's this way.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, a very, very good example. Have any of you guys, or in the chat, have any of you guys seen Arcane? That's the League of Legends Netflix show.
I am familiar with it because a lot of my friends play LOL, but I don't know the premise or the plot or anything.
Okay. Mackster, anybody, have you seen Arcane? Has anybody here seen Arcane?
I want to. I actually saw the promo for it. It looks really, really decent. I am intrigued because I do enjoy cartoons. I enjoy anime, and that looked right up my alley.
It is arguably, I think, one of the best things. It's arguably one of the best things Netflix has put out, like, in the past 3 or 4 years, in terms of their animation side. I think it's the best thing they put out.
So Netflix put this out?
Yeah, Netflix published it. And it was a French studio named Fortis that developed it and stuff like that. It was, and anyways, I wanted to introduce the arc of one of the characters, but if none of you guys have seen it,
go for it.
Just do it anyway.
There's bound to be somebody that's, like, maybe in chat or somebody that will be listening in the future that will have seen Arcane.
I'm gonna kind of introduce this character. So the main antagonist of the show, his name is Silco, right? He is essentially this crime boss that lives in the underworld, right? There's a undercity and an overcity. He lives in the undercity, and he has essentially fought his entire life to try and make the undercity its own unique city state. That's his entire goal. From point A to from the start of the show to the end of the show, that is his entire goal, to fight for the independence of the Undercity. Now, he's not the ruler of the Undercity, or he's not like the de facto, like the guy that's in charge. His brother is. And his brother is somebody who's very revered and very respected and all that stuff. But after certain events, he wants to take the pacifist route, his brother. And Silco does not like that at all, because violence begets violence and stuff like that. There's been a few civil wars and all that, and he hates the idea of making peace with the Overcity. And so what ends up happening is throughout the entire show, right? He is without giving any spoilers, right? Well, I guess I'll give one. Essentially, Vander, which is the brother, is given a choice either to essentially spare the Undercity or save his family. And ultimately, the spare the Undercity from the wrath of the Overcity or save his family. And of course, if he's a father and stuff like that, and he's got like his 2 girls that he has to protect, he's going to choose the family, right? And from Silco's perspective, who his entire goal of the show is, I want the independence of the Undercity, he says, why the hell would you do that? Why would you do that? And then, yeah.
See, that actually makes me think of the ending for Last of Us, to where Joel could go and give up Ellie to the Fireflies so that they can find a cure for the disease. But in the end, he chooses to save Ellie and screw the Fireflies.
Yeah.
And he's just like, yeah, no. As somebody who's already lost so much, when I finally found something again that I never expected to ever have, then I just can't give it up. And while Joel is definitely not a great human, he's a great character for that story.
Exactly. And so what ends up happening is that Silco basically like hates Vander for that decision. But then in the finale of the show, some like a bunch of events transpire. And long story short, Silco is given the same exact decision that Vander is given, where he says where the ruler of the Overcity comes to him and he says, we will spare the Undercity if you give up your family. And without giving any spoilers, basically that's a very like that like he I don't know how to introduce it without I don't know how to introduce the idea without okay.
Just go ahead.
Okay, hold on. I got this. Spoilers within the next 5 seconds. So if you don't want to be spoiled for a show called Arcane, this is your spoiler warning in 5, 4, 3, 2, take it away.
All right. Basically, he is given Silco is given the choice to either get the independence of the Undercity completely or give up his daughter. And that's the same exact decision that Vander was in. And so what ends up happening is Silco literally pontificates, like, he gave me everything I wanted, and of course, and his daughter has been a troublemaker throughout the entire show, right? Troublemaker's an understatement. And he said, and the quote exactly is, he gave me everything I wanted. The boy didn't even haggle. All I lose is problems. And he basically says it's like something like, this is like the folly of family, right? So he makes the decision in his heart to not give up his daughter in exchange for independence of the city. And it's the same exact decision that Vander makes. And so that's like it. Now, of course, it's like, wait, this guy in the beginning of the show said you have to sacrifice everything to get what you want. Why would he make this decision? And it's like, well, the events of the show happen, right? They paint this arc of where essentially Silco takes in this girl who has essentially ruined her. That girl has basically ruined her own life by making rash decisions and possibly and causing the death of friends and family and stuff like that. And so he takes her in and basically nurtures her in his own messed up way, because he is a villain still, right? He's not necessarily all good, but he does genuinely love this character like she is like she is his own daughter. And when he is ultimately given the decision of sacrifice your daughter and you will get everything you want, he's like, shit, my brother was in the same exact position. And he never explicitly says it in the show, but like everything implies, I can't do it. I cannot give up my daughter. And it's like, when you get to those final frames, when you get to that final scene, it's like, it's so poetic. It's so beautiful how everything basically adds up. And it's
so that's what you're saying is like that's a good example of getting a character from a place that like where at one point in time you would never believe they would do something like that. Properly mapped, you can start to believe, oh, they can do something like that.
Absolutely. And so the reason I even mention this is because I know Arcane is its own unique universe, right? It's its own thing. It's an adaptation of League of Legends. But if we were to tie this back into Star Wars, if there was somehow a series of books or shows or movies that could somehow plot out the route of Luke Skywalker from Episode 6 to, I'm going to stop using the flowery terms, The Last Jedi. If you could plot that route of about 30 years, how Luke literally gets beaten down and dejected, and like let's say he loses the Republic or something like that, that he does something to try and save the Republic and it backfires or something like that. If we could map out that route, then I could say, yeah, absolutely, I'm willing to believe it and I'm willing to accept it into my canon. Right? I'm willing to accept that into my heart of hearts as something being like, okay, I believe this could happen.
But right, but it has to be done well.
It has to be done extremely well. It has to be done thought out. It can't be, like you said, it can't be incredibly contrived where it's just like, oh, he is like this now. Why? Oh, because he is. Oh, okay, neat. Thanks. Thumbs up. But I think context matters in the sense of like context matters in the sense of how they use the characters and if they can respectively map out essentially how they want their characters to turn out, right? It's I think Star Wars did like a what if comic series, right? That was a bit silly. Essentially, do you know anything about this?
Marvel did it, yes.
Marvel did it. It was like a Marvel crossover or something like that. Like I'm very meh on that too. There's a lot of things in that were a little silly. Like
Speaking of that, Ladar brings up a good point. Have you guys seen the new trailer for the new Addams Family show?
No.
Yeah, there's a new Addams Family show going to be coming out.
Oh jeez,
isn't it called Wednesday?
What?
Isn't it called Wednesday?
No, it's called The Addams Family.
Yes,
I've seen the trailer.
Addams Family and Wednesday, two separate things. Yeah, let's just have 50 different Star Wars shows coming out, all by Disney, at the same time because we need more Star Wars. Produce content.
Yep. And
this thought popped into my head, but I'll let you finish. Go ahead, Gibbs.
Oh no, I was basically going to say that like if you like for me when it comes to like an adaptation and accepting it into canon and stuff like that, it's like I just ultimately, right? If you can take the ideas that the creator put and start off with those ideas and be able to effectively, right, transform what like go off on your own route essentially, right, and be like, okay, is this a plausible series of events? Then I'm willing to accept it. That's pretty much where I draw the line. If you're going off and it's like, and then Luke Skywalker, becomes God of the universe, and then he cuts all the planets in half because he thinks they're all filled with Sith Lords, and then I'm just gonna put down the book and walk away because no.
Right.
Yeah.
So
for my changing of the topic, dang it. Mando, why'd you have to start talking? Now I gotta let you go. Go.
No, I was just gonna say we've got like 15 or so minutes left, so keep it mindful.
Oh, I got this. Gibbons, you're gonna talk for 15 minutes because I'm about to make you mad. Gibbons, do you consider Buzz Lightyear's origin story to be canon or not?
It's not canon at all whatsoever.
This new movie, no.
Yes.
No. Yes.
No. I saw the cartoon movie when I was little. That is canon. You will not change my mind.
Now, hold on.
It was a TV series,
yeah,
not a movie.
Buzz
Lightyear Star Command.
Now,
I hate that nobody's streaming it.
Hold on.
Wait a minute.
It was all produced by Disney. No, it was produced by Pixar.
And you know what?
So they are the author. They are the
authoritative.
You can't use like the guy who made Sherlock Holmes. You can't use J.R.R. Tolkien. They're both dead. So like late art, in my opinion, of if the author is dead, then nothing can be canon afterwards. You can't use that argument.
We are throwing monkey wrenches, and I love it.
No, let me just say this.
But okay, like the truth. Okay, so if I'm gonna take this, in a calm and collected approach, right? Theoretically, a calm and collected approach. Compare Buzz Lightyear, right? Because I know it sounds stupid, right? Compare the toy in Toy Story to how he is in his movie. Are they similar characters at all whatsoever? Now, this is silly, right? Because I don't know how to even approach this without screaming at the top of my lungs and ranting for 4 hours.
You know what? Hold that thought real quick, Mando. If you have to dip, I can take over the stream and then we can continue this conversation.
I'm totally fine with that. Like because Ark has full control over this. Just make sure it's not like way too long, please.
Oh no.
We'll keep it under 12 hours. Don't worry.
Absolutely.
I mean, more views for my channel anyway. So
I mean, Mando, like, would you like to say your goodbyes and let us know what's going on with you?
Okay, yeah. So we're doing this. You're gonna take over the pilot seat. Cool. I don't know if I'll actually be here next week for Literary Souls because my job hates me and they scheduled me a full shift on a Saturday, which I told them not to do because Saturdays are important, but it's required and it's supposed to only be once a year that this is required, so hopefully they'll never do this again to me because I will quit. Anyway, the next Saturday it will probably be Arkasule, mackster, and I guess Gibbons if Ark wants to invite. I'll let Ark be the person in charge of figuring out next week. But other than that, I'll for sure be streaming Wednesday. Hopefully I'll be streaming next Friday as well, and I'll try and do some other streams. I'll probably do a Monday stream because my schedule is weird and they've got me off on Monday, so I'm gonna try and do a
12-hour stream. 12-hour stream Monday.
I don't know about that. We're still kind of trying to figure out Witcher right now because the game has kind of glitched on me a little bit and I don't really want to start over again, but I can't defeat one of the bosses and I'm kind of stuck in a cave and I can't get out. So we're still Witcher Wednesday is kind of
up in the air,
on hold right now. But yeah, Discord is the best way to get a hold of me. I guess Gibbons, yes. Discord's the best way to get a hold of me. I'm gonna try and start checking Twitter again more often. Also, it's less than a couple weeks away till Orlando, and it's freaking amazing and awesome. And so everything's gonna be scattered, and I'm going to be scatterbrained, but that's just normal for me. They'll burn the house down. Yes, Ladar, we're gonna burn down that Airbnb and not get our deposit back. But anyway, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate this. I feel like this is gonna be a series, or this is gonna spin off into so many different directions, and I'm so freaking excited and so thankful for Gibbons and mackster for cameras facing differently for jumping on. And this is more the feeling of what I was hoping for when I thought of Literary Souls, is us all having discussions about different things, and it's amazing. And yes,
awesome.
So yeah, keep it up, and if I will try and keep the stream up as well while I'm getting ready for work because I have to wear a dress today.
We love you, Mando.
If you guys want a picture of me in a dress, hit me up in Discord and DMs and stuff, and I'll show you a picture of my little black dress.
It only happens once a year. Like Mando does not wear dresses.
Once every blue moon.
Now, unlike Gibbons, he wears dresses every day. We don't talk about that.
How do I even do that?
I mean, I don't know.
Are there even dresses tailored for goblins anymore?
Yes.
Like, I don't know.
They're probably. I will check the D&D handbook for monsters, and I will get back to you on that.
All right, understood. Yeah.
All right,
man.
But yes, keep up the great work. I will try and keep the stream up as I'm getting ready for work. And yeah, go into Discord, at me in the Discord and say, hey Mando, we want you a picture of you in a black dress. So yeah. See you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
Leave. Press the button. Gosh.
I got you, Mando.
Oh,
I
really?
yeeted her myself. I have the power. So I am going to reiterate my stance.
Yeah.
Now there is Pixar. Pixar created Toy Story. Toy Story created Buzz Lightyear, correct?
Yes.
Now Pixar also created a Buzz Lightyear movie that was premiered quite recently.
Yes.
And would you consider that movie to be the canon origin story to Buzz Lightyear? Because the authors that created Buzz Lightyear are still in control and still creating content based around Buzz Lightyear. So therefore, is this a legitimate prequel to Buzz Lightyear?
I mean, quite literally, it is. Yes, it is unquestionable that yes, Pixar was the one that made Toy Story. Maybe you can make an argument about executive producers and directors that of the original Toy Story that do not that are not working with the studio anymore. I imagine I imagine that I'm actually going to check this out right now.
None of the original writers for Buzz Lightyear or Star Command were a part of Lightyear. Okay. None of them.
But
even just checking that.
But even like Toy Story, right? Like were any of the people that that worked on Toy Story let me see. So let's say director was Angus MacLane, blah 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 blah. Let me see if I can just pull up the original Toy Story, please. Joss Whedon wrote the screenplay for Toy Story. What? That's weird. It really doesn't look like anybody from the original stayed on, like at all. So, yeah, you could make that argument that
going through the Toy Story movies, the only there's no connections between any of the writers. Like none of the writers for Lightyear were even associated with any of the original Toy Story movies. Heck, even Toy Story 4.
Yeah.
None of them had any sort of connections. So and saying that the same writers, it's a complete lie.
Yeah. Completely different, I guess, like managerial, whatever, like completely different group of people working on this movie. Now,
so okay, there's actually there. Hold on. Let me continue your thought. I have something to say.
All right. So, but Pixar is the one that ultimately controls it. So, guess what? It probably is considered a prequel and stuff like that. Now, what I would have to look at ultimately is why. So, I am I gonna have to pull up my notes from the movie because I still have my notes written down somewhere. Hold on a second. Samsung notes. Oh, please tell me. Yeah. Basically, remember that the opening text for this movie is, "This is the film that inspires Andy to get Buzz Lightyear." This is the movie that inspires Andy to do all that stuff, right? They can say that. Right? They can literally say that Buzz Lightyear or Lightyear 2022, but it is tangentially connected. The events depicted in Lightyear existed as a fictional movie that takes place. This movie, yeah. No, that's what I'm saying, Light Fury. That essentially it inspired Andy to get the toy. That is the very first line. So literally, quite literally, Pixar had to fucking put a text crawl to interject itself into the Toy Story line to basically say, oh yeah, this is a prequel, by the way. Regardless of whether or not it actually happened, because this is a fictional movie, this is a prequel. And it's like, yeah, you could do that. It's kind of like how, for example, The Force Awakens opens up and it's like Luke Skywalker is missing, and it's like, what? How'd you do that? What's going on? And it's like, well, he's missing because we said so, and we own the IP now, so fuck you. And I'm like, oh, wait, what's the rules for swearing on this podcast?
Go for it.
Okay, whoops.
Just try to limit it.
I am the power. Go for it. I don't care.
Yeah. But ultimately, right, the idea is that if this is the movie that inspires Andy to get the toy, right, then there's a certain plot line that kind of needs to happen, right? And in addition to that, right, remember that Buzz Lightyear, right, when he comes out of the box, is supposed to act like the Buzz Lightyear that was from the movie, right? Because the idea is that if the toy line was created, right, the toy line is based off of the movie or the show or whatever. I don't even want to think about that anymore. The idea is that I imagine if the toy is based off of the movie, then he should be behaving like how he did in the movie, right? But ultimately, what I see is that the Buzz Lightyear from the movie doesn't really behave like he does in Toy Story.
Okay.
Like Buzz Lightyear, right? For all intents and purposes, is much more competent in Toy Story than he is actually in Lightyear, right?
Okay. So what you're saying is that it is a canon backstory for the character Buzz Lightyear, but not the toy that Andy owns, Buzz Lightyear.
It's weird because
I want to bring up the ancient Greek moral paradox, the ship of Theseus. In its original formulation, the ship of Theseus paradox concerns a debate over whether or not a ship that has all of its components replaced one by one would remain the same ship. You were bringing up the writing staff, you were bringing up the producers, the directors, so on and so forth. Even if you were to replace all of the directors and all of the writers between Toy Story, the Buzz Lightyear animated television show, and this new Buzz Lightyear movie, would it not be the same character? Like, or would it not be portraying the same character?
Well, there's
Buzz Lightyear.
There's one thing that you're missing there, right? When it comes to like the ship of Theseus, right? I mean, like, because that's a physical thing. The ship of Theseus is a physical thing. If you replace the mast of a ship, if you replaced all this stuff, right? Eventually, it's not going to be the original ship.
That is your side of the debate.
Yeah, but with a character, right? With the character of a show, right? There is arguably a spirit of the character. The character, not actually a soul, but imagine a soul, right? The idea is that if he carries the same personality throughout all of his different iterations and adaptations, and you can argue that it is the same character. If he behaves similarly to how he would in every single situation, then he could arguably be the same character. But what ends up happening, I think, is Lightyear and Toy Story depict two, or Buzz Lightyear Star Command, for example, depict two very different characters. Where on the side of Buzz of Star Command and Toy Story, you have a space ranger that is pretty competent at his job, all things considered. He's like a natural leader. He knows how to like communicate with people, and he's not. I mean, he occasionally, you know, like in the first movie, in the first Toy Story movie, he is hot-headed. Not hot-headed, but he's very conceited in the sense that he knows what he's doing, right? And you can even see it in Toy Story 2 with the Gen 2 Buzz Lightyears, where it's very similar. That like he's like, I'm Buzz Lightyear, I'm always sure, you know, like that type of thing, right? Well, does he say that in the movie? Oh my god. Has my mind been infected by oh god. Anyways,
I believe you're making a very, very, very strong case, Gibbons, and this you have showed us that even within quote unquote canon works, there are discrepancies. Like the discrepancy is Buzz Lightyear is I hate to use this, but Buzz Lightyear is like a moniker because he is a toy. There's millions of him made, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that means each one is going to be different, and then in each form of visual media, he is going to be different as well. Correct? Because you have Toy Story, then you have, which follows the toy, then you have the animated television show which follows that Buzz Lightyear character, then you have the movie which follows this Buzz Lightyear character. So, and we are using a cartoon toy character.
Yeah.
So there can be multiple different Buzz Lightyears, all leading back to the movie could have been the origin to inspire to inspire Andy to get the Buzz Lightyear toy. And then he would have played with the Buzz Lightyear toy, and that would have given that Buzz Lightyear its own unique personality.
Maybe.
I think that is this what you're getting at?
Maybe, but at the same time, if you actually notice more or less how like it's super weird Toy Story, but basically most toys when they come out of the box, it's almost like they have the same personality. When they are all factory made and printed, they have a similar personality, right? Because Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story 1, when he comes out of that box, has a very similar, if not identical, personality to the display model in Al's Toy Barn and Toy Story 2. They're both very strict. They both believe they can fly, that they can shoot lasers, that they can do all that type of stuff, right? But the idea is that it's very hard for me to believe that those two toys, right, were made with this prequel Lightyear movie in mind, because their personalities I don't think mesh that well. You've got some of the mannerisms, you've got some of these things, but ultimately in that Lightyear movie, Buzz is pretty he's got some knowledge, he's got some, I guess arrogance and stuff like that, or I guess just competence, but it's completely overshadowed by the situation he's in. Either the plot basically makes it so that he forgets to tell somebody something, and then all of a sudden they get into a situation and it's indirectly his fault, or he messes something up because he thinks he could do it on his own and it's ultimately his fault, or the situation is he is not smart enough in order to figure it out on his own and allies need to help him. What?
Right.
The idea ultimately is that the character that comes out of the box in Toy Story and the character that's in the movie are almost portrayed as two completely different personalities. But they're trying to basically gaslight you into believing that the Buzz Lightyear in the movie that they just created has a similar personality to the one in the
Toy
in the
Story.
movie, the ones in Toy Story, right? It's kind of like, for example, imagine if instead of Galadriel doing all of her scenes in suits of armor and stuff like that, imagine if she did it in dresses. Like, she looks a lot like the one in the Peter Jackson movies, right? But she has the same exact, she has a similar personality. Like, she says everything with the same inflection from the Peter Jackson movies, but she does all of the same actions that she does in the show. It's like, would you feel like that's gaslighting a little bit? In the sense that, imagine if she says that there's a tempest in me line, right? Like that brain dead line. But she says it in dress and says it with the same temperance or the same tone as she would in the Peter Jackson movies.
Right.
It's
yeah. Okay.
Uh-huh. That's how I feel they did Lightyear. It's like they kind of put whatever they thought Lightyear, whatever they wanted Buzz to be retconned into, and then put the Lightyear skin suit on it and basically said, yeah, this is our character now. This is who he is. And that's pretty much it. I think ultimately this is, I know that what we're talking about is supposed to be like fan fiction versus adaptation versus canon, blah blah blah. But this is kind of like a meta conversation that we're having, because it's
yes, we are.
the creator themselves wants to essentially betray what their original concept was.
And we can tie this into I have been pointing this out quite frequently, and I even pointed it out last week, in that just that statement right there, the creator, the author of an IP or of a franchise going back on their word, J.K. Rowling, and what she has done after Harry Potter has been published. It is done. There's no more Harry Potter books going to be made as of yet, right now, as we're recording. She has now gone back and said Dumbledore is gay. She has now gone back and said that it's fine if Hermione is black, so on and so forth. Even though she describes Hermione as being very, very pale skinned.
Yeah.
So in that same vein that you're talking about, you can make that connection with J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter. So it even though this is somewhat of a meta style conversation that we're having, you can also make that same comparison to J.K. Rowling and one of the largest franchises, Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's just the idea is that usually with characters there's an original idea with them, right? You can kind of trace it back to Luke Skywalker or in this case that we're talking about Buzz Lightyear, or I think a very, very cut and dry case of this is Sarah Connor from the Terminator series.
Yes, I agree.
I think like we're gonna cut out a bunch of the fluff. We're gonna say Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 and then Dark Fate. Because that's a direct through line.
All right.
Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 depict a Sarah Connor that is terrified. In the beginning of Terminator 1, she's terrified of the future war. She doesn't even know what it's going to be. She doesn't know what the coming apocalypse is. She doesn't want anything to do with it, but she's drawn in because it's basically her destiny in order to become the mother of the savior of mankind. That's the plot that's put forward. But ultimately she develops into this strong into a very, very like strong, and I mean this like mentally mentally strong in the sense that she knows exactly what she needs to do, even though like the irony is that she has to basically try and convey to people like, okay, there's this future war coming, we need to prepare for it. Everybody thinks she's insane. Not the Terminator rant. No, it's not going to be a rant, I promise. Hopefully. But long story short, they depict a Sarah Connor that at the end,
one way.
That's one way. That she loves her kid, that she basically is like, she has given everything for her son. And then Dark Fate literally changes the entire thing by, of course, doing some time travel BS and killing John Connor immediately in the first 5 minutes. And that changes Sarah Connor's perspective entirely into being an anti-natalist type character that like basically hates the idea that she gave up her gave up her body for her son or something like that. And it's like, Giblins, hydrate. Yes, I will. I've been talking too long. You are correct, actually. I am feeling a bit parched.
But yes, I agree, and this is why I wanted you to speak on these subjects, because you are so well versed in them. You actually care about these subjects, and you can create a cohesive narrative and a cohesive argument, as well as being, I would say, as fair and as partial as possible. And I just wanted to thank you for coming on and talking about this. And
yeah,
this conversation about fan fictions, canon, adaptations, plagiarism, all of this will continue. And I do believe, Mackster, do you have a last point that you would like to make?
Well, this is going with back to the Toy Story Buzz Lightyear stuff really quickly. When you look at everything that was created for it, Lightyear just ultimately feels so disconnected from everything else. I understand they said, hey, this is the reason why Andy wanted Buzz Lightyear, but everything else about that story just feels so disconnected to what we see based off of how they promote Buzz Lightyear in the movies, in the Toy Story movies, because it almost feels like Buzz Lightyear was just kind of created as a toy, and then they're kind of retconning the movie to be like, oh, well, now here's more reason for the toy.
Right. Very, very astute. I like that. Gibbons, do you have any last thoughts before we close out the stream?
I think I'm good, but ultimately, well, I guess I'll say one last thing. I think the major thing that separates for me whether something is like purely fan fiction and I'm willing to disregard it, or if I'm willing to accept it into the canon, is ultimately there is like, regardless of whether authors say it or not, there kind of is like an original intention with most of the times there's an intention with making a character, right? That either to put across a message or to put in a character that they just want to tell the story of. And ultimately, for me, the thing that separates fan fiction from, adaptation or canon is whether the person who is adapting this understands where their character originally came from and is willing to actually put in the time and the effort to, if not to carbon copy their personality, to at least emulate it in a way that it is respectful of the original, right? Like, it doesn't have to be the same exact character, it doesn't have to be the same exact personality, but if you get basically the core aspect of the character right, I guess you could argue, like, for example, the Halo games and then Forward Unto Dawn, right? Where in that fan film, Chief just comes in, he's very stoic, he knows how to handle the situation, he just kills the Covenant and then dips, right? Is like, okay, is that a respectful adaptation of Master Chief? I'd say yes, because it pretty much captures the spirit of the character rather effectively.
Right.
And that's pretty much, because I know you're going to wrap out the stream here, but yeah, that's pretty much where I want to end the point on, like, a character that I think is adapted respectfully.
Just because I'm wrapping up the stream does not mean we're stopping this conversation here. We will continue this next week, Lord willing. If all of you are able to show up, and if Mando's able to show up and pop in, that's wonderful. But we will be here next week at the same time, 10:30 Central, next Saturday.
Absolutely.
And we're gonna have a lot of fun because we are continuing this conversation. I hope to see all of you here that are in chat and my fellow panelists. I greatly appreciate Mando for allowing us to continue the live stream, even though she had to leave. I hope that she has a wonderful day and everything goes well at work. Mackster, do you have anything that you would like to say closing out the stream? Anything at all? Anything to plug? Anything that you wanna say? Whatnot?
Yeah, a quick shout out to this guy for always giving me something to look up to.
Oh man,
why'd you give him a last line? Why'd you do it?
I did that last week for the sidewalks for keeping me off the streets.
Okay. Gibbons,
Yeah.
my friend Gibbons Plays. Would you like to plug anything? Would you like to tell us what you're going to be doing this week, or what you have planned? Anything?
Whenever the Modern Warfare 2 campaign comes out, I'm probably going to stream it from start to finish. So
there we go. I like to hear that.
I'll
Where will you be streaming that? You're going to be streaming that on twitch.tv/Gibbons Plays, correct?
Yes. That is the plan. I think it comes out the 21st, so that's a Friday. I want to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to try and make it go for as long as I can. But yeah, I think that'll be fun. And then the weekend after, I probably won't be doing anything because that's Orlando, is it not?
Yes, it is. That is Orlando in about, I would say, within 14 days. We'll be in Orlando.
Two weeks.
And that's going to be a lot of fun. We will keep you updated on what's going to happen in that week. I am positive that there will be live streams where you can see all of us and still chat with us. And as always, you can chat with us on Twitter. Mackster, do you have a Twitter? I forget.
I do, but I almost never tweet. I just follow things on it.
All right, that's fine. Gibbons, I know you also rarely check Twitter, but would you like to plug your Twitter?
Yeah, it's just Gibbons Plays.
Yep, it's Gibbons Plays. Now, you can also follow me on Twitter. I am quite active. I kind of mess with trolls that are detractors of the Rippaverse right now because that's a lot of fun. But you can follow me at Arkasule. You can also follow me on Twitch, which is at Arkasule, and I have my own YouTube channel, which is also at Arkasule. I am Arkasule everywhere, and I love that. But this has been a fantastic podcast episode. I really enjoyed it. Thank you both, Mackster and Gibbons, for showing up. Mackster, thank you for appearing again, and Gibbons, thank you for the impromptu entrance. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, it's always a pleasure to just crash the stream and just hang out for a little bit and actually be able to contribute. I've watched a couple of these things on the side and stuff like that, but it's nice to be able to like pop in on something that like I understand somewhat well and be able to actually contribute. So yeah.
And next week I plan on getting a full night's sleep because I'll be running the show and I don't want to be late for that. And hopefully my two co-hosts will be there with me. So stay tuned for that. We will be dropping the links. It will be on this channel, on Mando's channel, because that is where Literary Souls is being kept. Once again, I want to thank Mando for first off having me on as her co-host. It's been a great honor. I also want to once again thank Mackster and Gibbons for showing up. This has been fantastic. Everyone in chat, you have been lovely. Late Art, Light Fury, Adrian, Emperor Doomsday, Jacob Ironside, everyone that I have missed. Thank you all so much for being here. This has been fantastic. I look forward to next week. I really, really do. I want everyone under the sound of my voice to have a wonderful day, night, evening, morning, whatever it may be. And with that, we say adieu.
Adios.